Okay, good afternoon from Bulletproof Coffee in the Arts District of Los Angeles. This is round 2. We did an Eileen Myles, but we're not sure we got it. So now we're going to do Frank O'Hara's poem, which I would say Les Luths, or Les Luths.
Les Luths.
Yeah,
I think
so
it's Les Luths.
we think it's Luths in French. So again, we have 3 stanzas. Should we just stop our line when we sort of feel like it's a natural place to stop and go around this way?
Yeah.
Because I don't see any punctuation.
Yeah, let's do that.
Well, except for the beginning. So I'll. You're getting a call. Should we stop?
Okay.
Okay. So Frank O'Hara, Les Luths. Ah, nuts! It's boring reading French newspapers in New York as if I were a colonial waiting for my gin.
Somewhere beyond this roof, a jet is making a stretch up the sky. Where is Gary Snyder? I wonder if he's. There's no punctuation. Where is Gary Snyder? I wonder if he's reading under a dwarf pine.
Stretched out so his book and his head fit under the lowest branch, while the sun of the Orient rolls calmly, not getting through to him, not caring particularly because the light in Japan respects poets.
While in Paris, Monsieur Marc Ory and his brother Jean, the poet, are reading a piece by Matthew Gailey and preparing to send a new... go ahead.
Everybody here is running around after dull pleasantries and wondering if the Hotel Wentley poems is as great as I say it is, and I am feeling particularly testy at being separated from the one I love by the most dreary of practical exigencies, money.
When I want only to lean on my elbow and stare into the space, feeling the one warm, beautiful thing in the world breathing upon my right rib.
What are Luths? They make ugly twangs and rest on knees in cafes. I want to hear only your light voice running on about Florida as we pass the changing traffic light and buy grapes for wherever.
We will end up praising the mattressless sleigh bed and the Mexican egg and the clock that will not make me know how to leave you.
I love when you read 2 poems back to back because you see all these wonderful connections. Look, we've got an egg, we've got a lover.
Yeah.
Like,
We've got that exclamation point in the first line.
we've got the exclamation
Oh
point.
yeah,
in the first
there
line.
you go.
So title, my French pronunciation was terrible, but I assume that's
Les Luths.
Luths
Yes.
in French. So
And
what
they make ugly twangs.
do they do besides make ugly twangs?
Oh, they're associated with those hyper sentimental, romantic
Yes.
paintings.
The
like,
angels.
oh God, anyway, those painters.
Yeah, so again, much like in the Eileen Myles, we have art and a relationship very quickly with this. Luths, what else? Yeah, a sense of the foreign, a sense of the antique, a sense of the beautiful, but also maybe kind of sappy or saccharine.
Yeah.
We have that 2-word title again, and this one,
Yeah.
the other one's each defeats, and this one's like Les Luths. So,
Well, just basic. Why French?
Oh, because that was
cool.
considered the language that all educated people had to know as a second language. A lot of poetic history, poetic inheritance comes from the French.
Importance of the arts, poetry, music.
I love the so American nuts.
Yeah.
After that, it's like just discarding the Luths
Exactly.
immediately.
Yeah.
boring.
So American and so very like, again, it's Frank O'Hara, so I guess I would do this, but so very like, it's a certain generation too. It's like,
Yes.
nuts,
Uh-huh,
Yeah.
very colloquial
Yeah.
for that period.
So it's immediately rejecting the title by beginning on nuts.
Seems to, because it's boring reading French newspapers.
Yeah.
Well, it's boring reading French newspapers because
New
he's
York.
stuck in New York
Right.
because
Right,
of his,
right.
his
Uh-huh.
financial difficulties.
Yeah, so we're forced without punctuation to make.
Right.
So it does seem to be that the sentence would be, it's boring reading French newspapers in New York as if I were a colonial waiting for my gin.
Right.
So the comparison there.
And then somewhere beyond this roof, a jet. Like he's looking for out. He wants out.
Yeah.
He wants
He's
to
stuck
get
on
in.
the hinterlands, right?
Yeah. And he gives some suggestion later, but just here, why do we think he's stuck or what? He's in New York. He's
Right.
reading French newspapers. Why the hell is
Well,
he
he's
reading
a
French
colonial, right? So
Yeah.
he's waiting for gin, so gin has to be shipped out.
Yeah.
So he's basically feeling like he's at the edges, right? He's
And
not
this
in
is
the
all
center
I
of
can
things.
do. I have to read, French newspapers
The
if I
closest
want
I
my
can-
Yeah.
taste of France.
It's a funny
Yeah,
kind
and
of
the colonial is an English guy in India, like he is a foreigner in New York, I guess.
which
in
is funny. I mean, I don't think it's a disservice to Frank O'Hara to imagine this is Frank O'Hara
Right.
speaking. So why is he the colonial? He's in New York. He's a New Yorker.
Right, I know.
Why is he reading French newspapers?
Because he's longing for France.
Yeah.
Yeah, and identifying with the French
Yeah.
rather than the New Yorkers.
which
Yeah.
I really like. So as if our colonial waiting French, and somewhere beyond this roof is a jet making a sketch of the sky. Sketch
So
of
he's
the
kind of
skies.
distracted. Maybe he's distracted because then he goes, "Where's Gary Snyder? I wonder if he's reading." So he's bored. So his thoughts just are going all over the place. So he hears a jet. He thinks about Gary Snyder. Who's Gary Snyder?
Gary Snyder is a poet who was first associated with the Beats. I think this is the only of the proper references I know, but first associated with the Beats, but then kind of did his own thing. He was not an urban poet. He was very much a poet of rivers and stones, and he spent time in
Also, it's
Japan.
like a
Zen,
dwarf-
He's reading under
pine.
dwarf
Buddhism.
pines,
Zen Buddhism.
stretched out,
yeah.
and he's in Japan
Yeah.
because
So
the
he
light in Japan respects poets.
So he wants to be on a jet making a sketch of like just tearing through the sky back to Paris, right? Like
Right.
fast, speeding. Whereas
What's a sketch? Is that speed?
Contrails.
speed,
I
yeah.
think it's
Contrails, the
those
line.
Yeah.
contrails, those lines that come out the back of a jet as it's leaving.
But I think it also is a reference to, like quick, right? Just could get, he's not thinking about the flight.
There's the
There's
jet.
Somewhere
a
around
sketch of the sky coming from LAX and getting us here. So so sketch of the sky. Sketch maybe also something artistic about this industry. Sketch of the sky. Where is Gary Snyder? I wonder if he's reading under a dwarf pine.
Stretched out, so his book and his head fit under the lowest branch. Like so, very.
So he's in a
Laid
better
back.
place
Yeah,
to him.
he's
He's
very
thinking, well, he
laid
gets
back.
to do what
I
he
love
wants
the
to do.
last two lines in that, with the son of the Orient rolls calmly, not getting through to him, not caring particularly because the light in Japan respects poets,
Right.
as opposed to the light here
Yeah.
where I am.
Okay, so
just burning.
we have a French newspaper, we have a speaker in New York, we have a reference to colonial India, and we have a reference to Japan, all within these first few lines.
Yep. And
he's not happy where he is.
He is
It
not
was-
But
happy.
he,
Rest-
there's a little
restlessness
mocking
in
of Gary
content.
Snyder there,
Yeah.
right? A little
Yeah.
or a little sarcasm there.
Yeah,
Like,
there's a
oh, he's
little-
lying around,
Yeah.
under a dwarf
And not even the sun is getting through to him.
Right.
It's
totally unfazed. Me, I'm
because it's
like,
so polite in that society.
Right.
Yeah, or he's lost in nature and his poetry.
Yeah, so contrast, so we have speaker in New York, Snyder in Japan, both poets.
right.
Yeah.
Both stationary,
Maybe one
One-
more content with solitude than the other.
Yeah.
Both reading.
both reading, but
Yeah.
Gary Snyder is very content in this poem to lie around doing nothing, whereas the speaker, which we think is O'Hara, is not, right?
Protected, Snyder is protected from the light, so.
Yeah, and there's also that Zen thing about being in the now, right?
Mhm.
Like Gary Snyder, the Zen is like you're just where you are is where you are, and O'Hara is not. He's not
like
Zen.
that.
No.
He's not
No,
Zen.
he's it's
I do
like
this, I do that.
the energy of New York, the jet,
Yeah.
the speed, the movement, longing for another place, next moment, instead of being content with being in the now.
What do you think of the lack of punctuation completely?
Oh, I think that's sort of
frenetic.
part of the energy
Yeah.
of New York that doesn't stop. It just keeps going and
It's
going.
like a sketch, right?
Uh-huh.
It's just making a sketch of the poem.
Uh-huh.
It's not putting in all the detail.
Well, it's just the thought running through your head. You have punctuation when you think.
And this is reminding me because this week we were reading the Kerouac's list
Yeah.
of how to write, and one of the things he
Right.
says is to sketch
No
it,
punctuation.
fast, do it now. Don't wait till your thought gels. Don't punctuate. Just keep going.
And yet we do get a stanza break. Is it just calling attention to that maybe ironic line, the light in Japan respects poets, or
I wonder if
We
the
did
stanza
basically
break
even
isn't really a comma, like,
yeah.
just a way to say, okay, this is a place where you pause and move on to the next thought. Like this
And-
is all one thought, and then while in Paris,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah, and aren't we switching characters here too? So we've left Gary Snyder under his tree in the Orient, and now we're in Paris.
It's another scene.
Yeah, another
it's
scene,
another
and
scene.
the pneu. They used to
anyone
send
know what that is?
messages on a pneumatique. It was a system,
Pneu
a mail
means breath.
system.
It means something about
Yes.
breath or wind.
A mail system where I don't know. I'm old enough to remember this, but they used to
Pneumatics.
in department stores. You'd give them the money.
Oh,
They'd put
yeah,
it in
yeah,
the
yeah.
canister, put it in the tube, and it would get shot up to the floor where they made change, and they'd shoot it back down.
Right.
And Paris used to have a mail system like that, so you could
cool.
send a letter through the
Cool.
pneumatique.
Oh, okay.
That's good. So we have, all right, so second thing is that while in Paris, Monsieur Marturi and his brother Jean the poet are reading a piece by Mathieu Gallet and preparing to send to Punet.
So they're
We
also
got a
reading,
little bit of
right?
a lot of P's in there.
Yeah.
Paris
pneu.
poet,
Yeah.
preparing
Sur
the
Mathurin.
piece.
And the M's, Monsieur Marturi and Mathieu. Yeah, so we have more written language, written communication. We have newspapers, poems, letters.
I mean, you think about a drawing room or a salon, the Hotel Wentley poems. I don't know what that is. Is that a...
I don't know, but I love the wondering if the Hotel Wentley poems is as great as I say it is.
Yeah.
Everybody, yeah. So he goes from thinking about what, the great things everybody else is doing, to where he is.
Yeah, it's good for me.
Everybody here is running around after dull pleasantries.
Here in Paris.
And I'm feeling particularly testy.
Yeah, there's a bridge between thinking about others and then thinking about their conversation about this book of poems, and it's like, oh, well, I think it's great, and that's when we get our first sort of personal statement.
Mhm.
And I am feeling particularly testy at being separated from the one I love.
Mm-hmm.
Testy.
Pissed.
Yeah, little.
But it's funny, it's not the other poem, it's not annoyed, but it's also not desperate, it's not crestfallen, it's something sort of, it is annoyed. It's like he's irritated.
It goes back to that on
But it's funny, but it's not as deep as you would think, maybe.
No, he goes on to say he's separated by the most dreary of practical exigencies, right? So it's just a mundane. He's not separated by,
Yeah.
separated by, I don't have the money.
Yeah. Money to
Right.
go to Paris.
Fly to Paris.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because when I want only to lean on my elbow and stare into space, feeling the one warm, beautiful thing in the world, breathing upon my right rib. I mean, that's...
Yeah,
I love
he
her.
does
I
keep
mean,
thinking about Florida,
a lover
about
who must be in Paris.
Paris.
What do we get from, we have sort of this, we read that he was kind of making fun of the Gary Snyder image, and then it's all very urban and very sophisticated, but then you have this image of the one warm, beautiful thing in the world breathing upon my right rib. What do you do with that switch from the sort of sophisticated city voice to this very romantic voice?
Right, that feels almost like lolling under a dwarf pine.
Yeah, it's a different
The
kind of
sun.
dwarf pine.
Yeah, the money and the practical exigencies seem to be connected to New York and almost to American practicality versus Parisian romanticism and a more poetic way of looking at the world, which would be expressed in breathing upon my right rib.
Yeah, we have dreary, right? Dreary there, and in the beginning we had it's boring reading French newspapers. So kind of like echoes that sense of like being here is so boring. or
It's
so
interesting because
dreary.
we had the plane is fast and the lack of
Right.
punctuation is fast, but then we have dreary and boring. So there's this time is messed up. Time is both fast and slow at the same time.
So everybody here is running around after dull pleasantries. That's New York.
I think so.
so.
Now that we
wasn't sure
Yeah.
read
about
it,
that.
yeah.
But I think it's deliberately, messing with place, like we're moving between so many places.
Yeah, this is happening in Japan. This is happening in Paris. While here, everybody's running around.
Wondering if
Just-
what I said is true.
Yeah, and I have to
Yeah.
deal with money, and all I want to do is
Be in Paris.
And
I don't
I
know
do
if
like
they're
that
in
you
Paris
pointed
or
out
not.
the word testy, because I would associate that with New York, with people
Yeah.
like haggling over money
Oh, yeah.
and getting testy about
Absolutely.
getting in the train or whatever
Being in New
it
York
is.
makes me testy.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely.
And that's why I think there's sort of a tonal shift, because testy is a very sort of urban kind of like, you're in a rush or whatever, things aren't working out
Right.
right. But then this image of the one beautiful thing in the world is very, I don't think that's ironic. I think he really is
Oh, no.
deeply missing
Yeah.
someone.
Yes.
And do we know where that person is? He says
We really don't know where they
separated
are.
from the one I love. But
I
we
The
gotta
assumption is
assume
Paris.
Yeah, you,
because of the it's boring reading French newspapers, and while in Paris, all this cool stuff.
I don't know if we can assume that or not, because he's just talking about how I'm bored, I'm unhappy with where I'm at right now, and these people are having these other experiences where they are, and all I really want to do is just be with the one I love.
Yeah, we could do different things with the French newspapers, because that could be a way of connecting to the person who's not there if that person is in France. But it could also be like, well, okay, when I'm missing this intimacy, then all I really have left is my sense of culture, right? And so all the artistic references and this
I mean, even the title is in French,
Yeah.
so it just kind of seems like
Seems to
a
be
longing
pointing to
towards.
France.
It seems to be like a longing toward France.
So, okay, when I want only to lean on my elbow and to stare into space. Okay, and then we move out of this tone of sort of romance and being with the lover to what are Luths? They make ugly twangs.
Right.
Yeah, so all of a sudden he's putting down France.
Right.
He's going from sort of like dreaming about it to putting it down. So I don't need France.
Yeah.
All I want.
yeah, it seems like it's undercutting the whole room. Maybe there are three threads. Like one is the frenetic New York scene. The other one is the kind of smarmy, romantic French scene represented by the Luths, and then there's something underneath that's a more genuine romantic feeling, like the world breathing upon my right rib.
Yeah.
That doesn't have to do with the Luths or the scenes in New York.
Now, what do you get from city life? What do you get from culture? And what do you get from love? Right? And how do those things play together? Yeah. What are Luths? They make ugly twangs and rest on knees in cafes. I love that image.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can picture Jean-Paul Sartre with a lute or
Right.
something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean in the 50s, were people playing loops in cafes?
No,
are these,
no. I mean, it's totally
I think
mixing
it's just
centuries.
a romantic idea.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. It's a romantic idea.
But it's definitely reads as like an ironic, like he doth protest too much, right? Like all he's thinking about is France.
Sour grapes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, what are Luths?
Yeah, I just thought Watteau is the painter I was trying to think of, who has those idealized country scenes of lovers
with the Luths.
and on swings out in the countryside, and somebody will be playing a lute in the corner.
Right.
And we're making fun of that.
Yes, I would
so,
say
yeah.
that.
Well, they make ugly twangs, and nobody uses them. They just rest on knees.
And now he says we're at the heart of it.
Then he says, I want to hear only your light voice running on about Florida.
And where's Florida coming from?
As we pass the changing traffic lights, so she's presumably maybe not. But
Well, he was gay too.
yeah, I know. But the one he loves is now in New York, right? Changing traffic light. That's a New York thing, right?
That's what I wonder.
well-
That's what I wonder. How definitive is changing traffic light on place?
Yeah.
This
I
is,
don't know.
this is a good question, because as it goes on, I mean, it's playing with the reader, right? It says, as we pass the changing traffic light and buy grapes for whatever. So then they seem to be in the same place, whether
Yes.
only in the imagination.
And by grapes for wherever we will wind up,
Right.
where
End
we
up
will
like
be praising the mattress.
Yeah, where they're going to create their romantic scene, of in this sleigh bed with feeding each other grapes, possibly.
Well, we've got Florida, we've got Mexico, we've got we've got Paris, we've got the Orient.
It's all sultry.
We've got New York. I mean, it's just all kind of. Where the hell are we?
a Mexican egg.
What's
I don't know what a
What
Mexican
is
egg
Mexican
is.
egg?
Huevos
like-
rancheros.
Maybe huevos rancheros.
It's a huevo. I mean, does huevo mean something here? Like, is that,
Mexican egg.
or is there actually a thing?
There
that's
may be a
Mexican
dish
egg?
that back then that was called a Mexican
I'm
egg.
imagining this sort of lovers' weekend getaway kind of thing. So it says,
Yeah.
Bed and breakfast.
so bed and
right?
breakfast, right? Praising the mattreless sleigh bed, and the Mexican egg, praising everything. Everything's good in the scene,
Yeah.
even the clock that will not make me know how to leave you.
Yeah, that's.
It's just like they're under a time constraint, right? They're not.
They're not free to
Right.
remain in
They're
that room
The clock is going to
together
strike
eating
The clock is
grapes.
going to strike, but it won't tell me how to leave.
out, and I'll be back here again in this place where you're
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, it'll tell me that I have to leave, but it won't tell me how
How,
to do that.
yeah.
Right.
So why invoke this whole French romantic tradition that?
Well, it's all the grass is always greener on the other side, you know. So, I just picture him just thinking, you know, I'm trying to get my mind off of the fact that I'm missing you. So I'm reading these French newspapers. I'm just doing all these things, and I'm thinking about my friends, and these things are happening here and there, and really, yeah, I got this money problem, and I just wish we could be together.
Yeah. And then we get that image of togetherness in the final stanza,
Right.
and whether that's past, future, or imagined, it's just as powerful, I would say.
I have like a short,
But we don't know where we don't know why they're separated, and we don't know where the other
Money.
person
Well,
is.
Money.
I mean, we know why they're separated, money, but we don't know where the other person is,
Right.
Yes.
and why, you know.
There's definitely an aligning of like the romance with the French, right, with Paris, but that seems to be
The reference to tradition, and through the title to begin. Yeah.
seems to be an alignment of like this sort of romantic feeling with French romanticism.
And so this final scene that we're given, they're in Florida. They're praising the sleigh bed. They're praising the Mexican egg. Is that
What's a
Div-
mattressless? little bit?
mattressless sleigh bed? Is that diverging from this French tradition, or somehow bringing the French tradition into?
Well, I think. Well, he.
Well,
he
the
has not-
grapes, I think, definitely invoke the French
Yeah,
tradition
yeah,
from
right.
the
Feeding
the
grapes.
yes.
Well, that's almost like a Greek thing, right? An
Uh-huh.
ancient, you know.
But definitely European.
Tradition of
Right,
romance.
and perhaps the sleigh bed as well. If you think of reclining figures in painting.
Oh, that's true.
But
the-
he has not been praising anything in this poem.
And it
Really,
seems
up
like
until now.
Yeah, he's been
I-
making fun of things.
Right.
He's been testy. He's been irritated by
Right.
things.
And then when the one he loved comes, they're going to be praising the sleigh bed and the Mexican egg and even the clock, right?
Well, he's annoyed. He's particularly testy
Right.
at this moment.
But all he wants is the presence, and then that presence brings praising and of everything. There's no ironic, there's no satire in that last, right?
Right.
Then there's a real genuine sort of sense of loss, not a like a mockery, right? He's not mocking. He's not mocking anything. in
He's
that.
not. I don't think he's mocking love
Right.
and longing in the last one.
No, but I'm going back to the first stanza. I understand juxtaposing the overly romantic, kind of laughable Watteau romanticism with what he's got with this person. But I don't know where Gary Snyder in that poetic tradition fits into his.
I agree. That's a strange thing. I wonder if it has to do, for me at least. I think when he says, I think Gary Snyder in this image reading under the dwarf pine is alone. And here at the end we get Florida, and we get sort of this the natural.
Well,
imagery
I don't
of
think
Florida.
they're in Florida. She's just talking about Florida.
Yeah,
This person is talking about Florida.
but it says we. I think there's a we here that's together in the end.
Yeah.
Now I'm willing to, and so I think that's a different kind of. It's a different kind of contrast to the city. So we have city and culture, and then we have Gary Snyder sort of out in the woods, and then we have this lovers scene at the end, and that's also a different kind of contrast.
And he's
So it's contrast because in the Gary Snyder reference, that's solitude, and the poetess self-contained. Everything that
Yeah.
he needs is in that moment
Yeah.
and in that place. He's satisfied.
He's not sharing, he's calm.
Whereas the speaker in this isn't going to find that unless he's united with the lover.
Yeah, we're moving from irritation and testiness to the vulnerability of longing for someone. There's no zen there. There's nothing self-contained there. It's so human and vulnerable.
Uh-huh.
he wants to hear only your love voice, right? So it's not about France, right? It's not about Paris. It's not about Luths. It's about your voice. I want to hear that.
Right. No ugly twangs, just your voice.
Yeah, I like this.
And I have to say, those words, those lines, maybe I'm just such a cynic, but beautiful things in the world, breathing upon my right rib, and then the last one will not make me know how to leave you. They feel a little worn out to me, those lines. Like, they don't, it feels like he's almost fallen into that romantic tradition that it is easy to laugh at, or I don't know.
Except for when it's you who's feeling it.
Yeah.
I think so.
He's
but
surprised that he feels
he's
so strongly.
He's so ironic and about so much, but then at the end I think he does fall into kind of a romantic kind of corniness. But I think that it's kind of maybe the poem earns it in some way by getting there the way that it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's probably could be surprised at the depth of his feeling.
And also, I think just linguistically, he doesn't just say, I'm going to miss you when I leave. He says the clock that will not make me know how to leave you, which is a very strange construction.
He's a little angry at the clock now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Why make? Like, not make me know.
Yeah.
Make it say not teach me, right? Is there something?
Well,
It just seems too clever to me.
I think that goes
I
back
don't
to
know.
the title of,
I was just gonna-
where he is sort of making funny of the romanticism by throwing in the Luths,
Yeah.
and titling that.
And titling it in French.
Yeah.
Right.
To make it even more.
Right.
and then the on nuts.
Yes.
But
But
it
those
keeps
two
failing.
lines at the end of the second and third stanza I assume are standing in contrast to the sappy romanticism.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, they themselves are a little sappy.
sappy.
Yeah.
They don't work for you quite as much as.
The
Right.
one warm, beautiful thing in the world breathing upon my right rib. It's a little, maybe a
It's a
little
little
bit over the line.
overwrought.
I find that
to
one a
me.
little bit over. I find the last one touching, but I think there's
Yeah,
also something
yeah.
interesting where it's easy to make fun of sappiness when you see it, but then when you
When
feel it,
it's like
Right.
he's
Yeah.
drawn into that same thing.
Yeah.
But I was much more comfortable with how Eileen Miles talks about that vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
That seemed fresher to me. This is like,
I
Well,
think it is. Yeah.
So what time period would this be?
50s?
50.
Yeah.
So, well, she should be more. She's more contemporary.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like though that the title is meaningful here, and that there's something about like it's not just because if it's just the Luths, like those silly,
Right.
ugly, tiny Luths, then why is he calling the whole poem that?
I think we're getting like the one rainy day in
Wow.
California since I've been
Oh
here.
boy.
It's going to be a drop over there and then another drop
Well,
over there.
this is what we call rain,
Right.
okay?
Yeah.
3 drops and it's rained.
And it will stop in 30 seconds or not. We'll see. We don't want to leave the phone out.
So in the
Yeah,
event,
maybe this is another string on the lute, his poem. I don't know.
Well, like, so I'm saying, like, is he talking about music? Is he talking about whether or not he's making music with this poem?
Uh-huh.
I don't know. Like, I can't quite figure out this poem. Still.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to be.
Yeah.
Right, that's a
Okay.
good place to be. And because I do worry about the rain on my phone, should we do
Okay.
final words?
Final words.
Okay. We'll do final words. So we've moved around a lot in this poem, and we're not left with any sort of clear certainty.
I mean, what?
I was just saying,
Yeah.
which is good.
Which is
Yeah.
good. I do feel like he is. There's a little bit of self-mock here. Like, I am supposed to be this urbane New Yorker, and I'm supposed to, like Gary Snyder is very, Californian, kind of like woo-woo. But he keeps even though he tries to push it away, he keeps circling back. He keeps coming back to the sappy "all I want is you," right? So I think there is a little bit of a self-mock here, like, an inability to deny his true feelings, right? Which are not, just surface, a sketch. in
Yeah,
the
you're pretty
sky.
damn cool, Frank,
Yeah.
until you fall in love.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't
That's
be
what
as
it feels
cool.
like. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess if you fall in love, you might not be as good a poet with me. But I don't know.
You didn't care for this
Well,
one.
actually,
Which is good with the other poem because we get the opposite in the other
Right.
poem.
Yeah.
The one thing I'm learning is how much these poets talk about poetry in their poems.
Yeah.
I don't know if I wouldn't say that this would be a favorite poem. It's kind of an interesting thing to travel through, but I don't think it really does anything spectacular for me.
I'm going to come back to the title, and I'm wondering if these aren't a little bit of what you were talking about. If these aren't some of his ugly twangs, that like when he's emotionally engaged with this person,
Yes.
all he can come up with is these romantic kind of ugly twangs.
Oh, I think that's great.
Good. I think that's great.
That made me like the poem
Yeah,
better.
me too.
I think that's
Me
our, I
too.
think that's our final
Very
word. So
good.
try what we did
Thank
last time.
you.
That's all the Mexican eggs and mattress the sleigh beds we have time for. And I think the rain has stopped, but we'll stop the talking.